Well, hello everyone. It's David again. Just wanted to go through a couple of slides here. I found that we're on a roll here. Might as well keep going with the slides and the video. A lot of information we're going to be compiling, but this is on the interview and immersion work I did with the UNCG CST seniors. And I'm really proud of this project. It's something that I recently was involved with as far as finding a way in which we can find out what seniors are facing as far as going into the job market, going into the work world. And we had it was a communication studies class 341, and just go through a couple slides here. First, what we're going to go through today is give you more of a status update of what happened in that particular interview session with the class. We did a lot of class interview questions, and then we did an actual online survey with them. So we got to learn more. This is more immersive to find out more about what actually they do when they're going through work sites. I'm talking about online job boards such as Indeed or LinkedIn, things like that. So the three things we'll go through today are interview questions we ask, downloading our learning, finding out what we thought was key points with the students, and third, stories that create meaning for us as far as how people define what would mean the most to them. So with that, here's my class. We just did the interview session with this class on March 24th, and it's an information interview workshop that I give about 3 or 4 times a year. This one happened to be on the 24th. It was within the last week, and it's a career prep class. And you can see pretty excited group here, and they gave a lot of great responses and a lot of great feedback and a good conversation. So let's walk through that. First, to talk about the interview questions, let's talk about the first one that we came across as far as when I usually open up the session and say, what do you do when you want to find work in your field? And the answers to that were pretty straightforward. It was job boards, career services, Indeed.com, which is a job board. Some go on professional social networks such as LinkedIn. And funny enough, Craigslist. Funny to some, but not to others if they find a great job. So with that, I asked them more of a detailed question as far as walk us through your process. And what we found is some search online with career services, and then they send in their resumes to potential employers. A lot of them update LinkedIn profiles and search for internship positions, on LinkedIn or other sources, job fairs, things like that. Some get a lead from someone in the field. A lot of them talk with professors about what they know about the work world and potential positions they could apply for, things like that, and talking with on-campus recruiters at the job fair. So, third question we have is, how many resumes do you have to send in to get a solid job interview? So that was a big revealing question there. Some said 20 plus resumes. So this is a class of seniors about to graduate, and this is across the board. We'll find this with graduate students also. 20 plus resumes to at least get one solid job interview. Some said about 100. And there was a reason behind that. We were talking about getting behind the numbers. A lot of this is because of technology. And the technology is right in people's hands. It's mobile phones. And with a mobile phone or a tablet or even a laptop, you can apply for a job very easily by sending in a PDF resume of yourself or going to an online job board. So therefore, you have the capability of sending in hundreds of resumes or a lot of resumes. But the point is, you really don't get the response back that you expect because there's 1,000 other people that can do the same thing. So therefore, you have to send more resumes. And so the yield is not as great. The main answer was I have to send in a lot. So I'm going to go forward here. What we also did was conduct a online, this is more of the interview questions, more of the immersive part. We spent a lot of time talking with a lot of different students individually and collectively over the years. But I want to kind of encapsulate and put it into something where we could actually get some data. And actually, as we're talking with students about, we usually do a seminar on LinkedIn, so I actually walk with students and see what they do, what they don't do, how they set up their profiles on LinkedIn, if they Google themselves, what comes up, those kind of things. So that's the immersion part. But I want to capture some data as part of a research project I'm doing with graduate program for CST. And it revolves around information interview questionnaire that we put together. And some of the questions kind of interesting. How many internships have you worked in the past? Was it more than one? Answer to that one, yes. Most of the respondents, I think we had, so we had a class, and out of this class, most were responding 2 to 4 internships that they've had in the past, which is a pretty good number, or 1 to 2. And did any of your internships lead to a full-time position? 8 out of 10 on this particular questionnaire that we had last week came back and said no. That most of them would work multiple internships, yet they didn't see where they would actually get a correlation between them working this internship and getting an actual full-time position or even a part-time job. So it's a lot of students are experiencing this. This is one of the problems we were uncovering. 2 out of 10 said yes, that they did work an internship and then they were able to secure a full-time position. So with that, we asked how many job offers you received were due to your connection with someone advocating on your behalf with a hiring manager. What that means is, did you have someone, a guy that knows a guy, a gal that knows a guy, as far as like that could get you hired, meaning that you're graduating out of a certain field and they say, hey, go meet this hiring manager. I think they're looking for someone just like you. Out of that, we found that a lot of people did not have a lot of connection with people that could refer them in. So what we did was took a lot of this information and the data and the work that we did and notes and everything else. We put it up on a job search board to kind of go like what exactly is the bottom row with the pink and everything, the orange and everything else, says what is currently going on as far as the people having a tough time getting into the job market, internships, not turning to full-time jobs, things like that. On top is what they want to have happen. They want to be able to go through a process where they graduate, interview with the right people and start accepting employment, or get an internship that turns into a productive, fruitful career job. So with that, here are 3 things that I learned about their job searches. Some of the stuff was quite eye-opening, and then some of it I found through research and was confirmed through the research. First, interviews. Most of the comments were along the lines of people not knowing that or students not knowing that their resumes were not being seen by the hiring manager. Number 2, nearly all had never heard of ATS, which is application tracking system, something that you have a system of computers that when 1,000 resumes come in for a particular posting, it screens them out and only gives the manager 10 or 100, 10 out of 100 resumes. So most of those, 90% of those resumes never get to the actual hiring manager due to the application tracking system. Second one is the digital footprint. It's a big favorite when we go through immersion and really walk through with each one of the students their digital footprint. What we're looking for is that if they Google themselves, what actually comes up? What is their digital footprint? And most have never really done this, yet all of them really acknowledge that that's the first thing they would do if they were a hiring manager. If you have a resume in front of you, you really want to find out the person and their background. You would take their resume and then Google search them. And most were very surprised that it showed less than a favorable listing of their social network associations, things like that. Some of them had no professional profile set up, such as record, such as LinkedIn or things like that. So there was no way to discern one student from another, one employee, potential employee candidate from another when you're doing a Google search. So that's how we got into the immersion process. The stories they were telling us about their profile is most were not even aware about using professional social networking. This is borne out by some of the research that we had and gathered, is that only 34% of students out of 100, 34 out of 100 were even aware or had a LinkedIn profile or professional social network profile. So when a hiring manager would look for a person, they usually go on LinkedIn, and if you're not there, they can't corroborate what you're saying, through that means. Yet most realized, and here's the interesting thing: the stories they were telling us that they do realize that people are looking at their resumes, and then they Google them and Google a resume. So there was a disconnect between those two, and that was some of the stories that we kept hearing over and over again. Three other facts that I learned from this research, in talking with this recent class that I just had. Most could see their pathway to their chosen field. They could give me kinesiology, they could give me marketing, they could give me business, social, a lot of different fields. These students were coming from, and they're preparing their resumes and preparing for interviews and things like that. And so they could see their pathway going into certain fields. And they were also inspired by, graduates out of the UNCG program that were able to chart their course and go into their chosen fields. And a majority of students have heard about getting referrals before going into job interviews. And this is the real subject matter, the big idea, I should say, about this program is we're trying to find out how many people find out about informational interviews. It's the interview before the interview. Someone refers you and says, why don't we get together, talk about your profession, talk about why you got into your career field, maybe you're talking to an alum, that kind of thing. They've heard of these things, but they never really use them. So the third thing, if at first none felt they were really well connected, and this was evident through LinkedIn because we'd asked them how many professional connections do you have, not social connections. And they didn't feel like they really had a lot of professional, they didn't really know a lot of people, which is normal. We understood that. Yet each felt confident that with effort and some guidance, meaning that some type of solution was there, if they put enough effort forward and somebody guided them through the process, they would be successful in their careers. And that's what we believe also. But so on the one hand, there's a problem, and then on the other hand, there's an opportunity. So that's what we learned there. One of the narratives that we learned also, and one of the questions we asked, what we're asking ourselves, let's say in this whole process of our, to kind of like, what's our takeaways? What did we get from this process? Or what did I get from my team? What did we look at in this process? What was the prevailing thinking on the job searches? First, most had never heard of an informational interview, never, let alone participate in one. And that was one of the key things. Even though this class we were in, communication studies class, was teaching informational interviews, most of them had never been on one and never really heard about one. So it's not something that a lot of students know about. And the bulk of the focus of the job search that they're geared toward, as far as even in the class we were in, is the standard process of sending in a resume, following up, going on an interview, and hope you get the job. And so what we're finding is, as far as we could kind of boil down what the biggest disconnection in their job searches is their expectation of being gainfully employed once they graduate or post-campus or post-college, that they're just going to be gainfully employed by using the traditional process. That's the biggest dislocation because the research doesn't support that. And I think a lot of them know that by talking to friends and talking to other colleagues that have graduated, classmates that have graduated, where it's over 50%, where most are underemployed. So there's 50% that are getting good jobs, and there are 50% that are not. And that's pretty big numbers for those that have graduated. So those are big numbers. One of the other things is they're thinking gaining new skill sets in college, but they don't feel like they're really prepared for the current job market as far as with technology, the way that you can basically be screened out, that kind of thing. They didn't know if they had the skills or the tools or the ability to get a full-time job as quickly as they really wanted to. So the bigger takeaways from the interview and immersion session, in summary, most students felt they were not prepared for or trained for getting a job without an internship. And they realized also that internships in most cases did not lead to a full-time job. So you can get the internship, and it's hard enough to get one of those, and you have to work multiple internships. And then once you get the internship, it's harder enough to get. They don't necessarily lead to a full-time job. So in a way, there's a disconnect or problem there. And lastly, in conclusion, without inside connections, what we bring up and highlight, and so they can see the disconnect here, is that without inside connections to a company through whatever process, informational interview, the odds are that hiring managers will not look at 90% of the resumes. And they realize this even though they may be qualified for a particular position, and that's very discouraging. It's a pain point, and that's something that we're going to be looking at as far as addressing with design thinking in this particular process we're walking through. So, with that, to our team and to my colleagues as far as our group, any ideas be greatly appreciated, and looking forward to the next step. So until next week, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.